Ladies and gentlemen, patience is not weakness. It's power under control. Most people confuse stillness with softness. They think if you're not loud, you're not strong. If you're not reacting, you're not feeling. If you're not clapping back, you must be scared. But the truth is, real power doesn't move on impulse, it moves on precision. You see, anybody can react, anybody can explode, anybody can throw hands or words when their ego feels bruised. But it takes a different kind of strength to sit back, watch it unfold, and choose the right moment to move. That's not fear, that's discipline. People mistake your calmness for cowardice because they don't understand that lions don't roar when it's time to strike. They focus. They crouch low. They get quiet. Why? Because that's when they're most dangerous. That's you. They didn't know that your silence wasn't you backing down. It was you charging up. You weren't scared to speak. You were wise enough to wait. That's what makes the one different. See, patience doesn't mean you didn't feel the disrespect. It doesn't mean you didn't notice the betrayal. You saw it, you heard it, you felt it, but you understood something most people never learn. Not every reaction deserves your energy. Not every insult needs a response. Not every battle is worth the war, so you held your peace. Not because you couldn't break them, but because you didn't need to prove you could. You had bigger plans. You had vision, and vision always demands restraint. While they were throwing shade, you were planting seeds. While they were gossiping, you were grinding. While they were mocking your moves, you were mapping your empire. And when the time came, when your moment arrived, you didn't need to scream. You just stepped in and everything changed. That's patience in motion. That's power refined through restraint. They thought patience was you being passive, but patience is the highest form of strategy. It's knowing that emotion is loud, but wisdom is quiet. You studied the game, you observed the patterns, you watched who was real and who just wore masks. And when the curtain dropped, when the truth finally came to light, they didn't see the same version of you they once played with. No, now they saw the one, focused, ready, and unstoppable. They didn't realize that holding back doesn't mean holding off forever. You were just letting the fire build, letting the vision sharpen, letting the moment mature. And now that the wait is over, the impact is louder than any words you could have said. Because when power moves with patience, it doesn't just land, it leaves a mark. Silence is your strategy, not your surrender. People talk too much these days. They think the louder you are, the more powerful you must be. They think every moment needs a reaction, every insult needs a response, every threat needs to be answered. But you've been operating on a different level. You understood from the beginning that silence isn't weakness, it's warfare. You don't waste your voice on people who have already decided not to hear you. You don't waste your time on noise when you've got legacy to build. That's the difference. They thought your silence meant you had nothing to say. They didn't realize you were saying everything through your discipline, through your patience, through your work ethic. You weren't interested in being seen. You were focused on becoming undeniable. You weren't trying to clap back. You were preparing to step forward in a way they couldn't ignore. See, silence is a choice. And it's a weapon when used right. You watched them lie. You heard them laugh. You saw them cheer against you when you were down. But you said nothing. Not because it didn't cut deep, but because you knew your comeback would speak louder than any defense you could mount. You understood something they didn't. That energy is precious. That focus is rare. That sometimes the most powerful move isn't talking back, it's moving forward in silence until the results make the noise for you. Silence gave you space to think. It gave you time to grow. While they were busy talking about you, you were working on you. While they were caught up in petty games, you were developing real power. They confused silence with softness because they didn't understand control. But you did. You understood that every lion doesn't roar at every distraction. Sometimes the strongest move is no move at all. Until it's time, you mastered the art of sitting in rooms with people who didn't believe in you, who doubted you, who tried to count you out, and you kept your peace. You learned how to walk with your head high even when your name was being dragged through the dirt. You let them underestimate you. You let them misjudge your strength, because that was the plan, that was the trap. The less they saw you coming, the more impact you would make, and now they're confused. Now they don't know how to deal with the version of you that's no longer silent, but still speaks through action, not noise. You didn't surrender. You were studying, you were healing, You were building a foundation they can't shake, a mindset they can't touch. Silence wasn't your retreat. It was your reset. Your silence wasn't you hiding. It was you sharpening. Because the real ones don't always make announcements. They just arrive. You don't chase validation. You move in purpose. That's the difference between those who are loud for attention and those who are quiet with intention. Some people spend their whole lives trying to impress the crowd, hoping for claps, likes, applause, and approval. But not you. You stopped needing their nod a long time ago. You realized that their praise doesn't build you, and their rejection doesn't break you. When you move in purpose, you don't need permission. You don't need to be seen to be significant. You don't need to be understood to be effective. You've walked through seasons where no one clapped for you. No one acknowledged the late nights, the sacrifices, the pain you kept private, but you kept going. You didn't ask for pity. You didn't beg for support. You just kept showing up, doing the work, building in silence, and letting your purpose carry you through. That's rare, that's power, because when you move in purpose, you don't wait for the green light. You become it. See, validation is temporary. They love you when you're winning. They cheer when it's convenient. But let you fall, let you struggle, let you choose a path they don't understand. And suddenly the crowd goes silent. That's why you had to disconnect from their opinions and connect to your calling. Purpose doesn't shift with popularity. It doesn't shrink to fit in. It expands to stand out. That's what you've been doing all along. They tried to label you, tried to fit you in a box, tell you who you are and what you're allowed to be. But you weren't built for labels. You were built for legacy. And legacy doesn't ask for applause. It demands discipline. Purpose will have you walking alone while others gather for attention. It'll have you sacrificing now so you can build something that lasts later. You don't chase moments. You build movements. That's what separates the one from the crowd. When your steps are guided by purpose, your peace becomes non-negotiable. You're no longer triggered by every opinion, every hater, every doubter. You learn to smile at the silence, to thrive without recognition. You understand that most people won't see your value until it becomes visible. But you don't need them to see it. You just need to stay aligned. Stay consistent, stay grounded, because the real reward isn't in being liked. It's in being fulfilled. It's in knowing you're walking in something bigger than ego, louder than applause. You've felt the pull of wanting to explain yourself, to prove yourself, to silence the noise. But you've matured past that. Purpose doesn't argue, it acts. It speaks through results, not rebuttals. You're no longer reacting to the world's confusion about who you are. You're just becoming it, quietly, boldly, unapologetically, because when you know why you were created, you stop shrinking to fit rooms you were meant to rebuild. The storm doesn't announce itself. It arrives. There's no warning, no polite introduction, no heads up. It comes when it's ready, when the pressure is built, when the clouds have gathered, when the silence has stretched too far. That's you. You've been building in the background, quietly stacking every lesson, every loss, every sleepless night into something unstoppable. They didn't hear you coming because you weren't making noise. You were making moves. You were gathering force. You were becoming the storm they never saw coming. They ignored the signs, dismissed the silence, mistook the stillness for surrender. They thought you were finished because you weren't front and center. They thought your story was over because they hadn't seen a plot twist. But storms don't ask for attention. They demand it. They shift the whole atmosphere when they show up. That's exactly what you've been preparing for. Not to beg for recognition, but to command it through presence, through purpose, through power. You don't come with warnings anymore because you've outgrown explanations. You don't announce your greatness. You embody it. You've learned how to let your actions shake the ground while your words remain few. The old version of you wanted people to see the change coming, to notice the growth, to acknowledge the process. But not anymore. Now you move like thunder. Silent build-up, loud impact. You're not seeking permission to be great. You're walking in it. Everything you went through, every betrayal, every closed door, every doubt, it all added pressure. And pressure doesn't destroy the chosen. It transforms them. You took every setback and let it make you sharper, stronger, harder to break. You didn't cry for the world to feel sorry. You didn't scream for sympathy. You just waited, you just worked, you just became until the time was right, until the power within you couldn't be contained. You're not here to fit in anymore. You're here to shift the room. You're not knocking on doors hoping they let you in. You are the storm. They open up or get blown away. That's what happens when you stop playing small, when you stop apologizing for your strength, when you stop shrinking for people who were never meant to handle your full force. They thought they had time, they thought they had you figured out. But storms don't follow their timelines. They move when they're ready, not when the world is. And now they feel it, the shift, the energy, the silence before the impact, because you don't just walk into a space anymore, you transform it. They feel the weight of your preparation, the heat of your momentum. They realize this isn't the same person they dismissed, doubted, or disrespected. This is the storm, built from pain, from purpose, from power. This is the one they never saw coming,